to start us off, I will pass it off to my wonderful co-host, Dr. Robin Mueller, to give a land acknowledgement. Take it away.
Thank you, Ariana. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our session today. I'd like to acknowledge that Royal Roads University is situated on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. I am a white settler, an uninvited occupier here, and I would like to acknowledge the tremendous gratitude I have for the opportunity to be able um, to live and work in this space where the land, the outdoors, is so generative and giving to me. Despite the fact that it's winter here, it's a bit chilly and often rainy. I try to spend as much time as I can outside, on the trails, in the forest, by the ocean, and trying to take up the messages that the land is trying to share with me, which right now is that it's time to simmer down, to rest, to turn inward, to reflect, and to be quiet. So I hope that you, wherever you're situated, have the opportunity to do the same and to consider for yourself how we benefit from being situated on the lands where we are. Ariana, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Robin. It's beautiful. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Of course, the reason that we're here, we're going to talk about our MA in Higher Education, Administration and Leadership. We have some super wonderful alumni here with us. Of course, you just heard from Dr. Robin Mueller, who's the professor, the program head, and the school director. We're also joined by Al Parody, Chelsea Usi, and Angelina Leduc, who are wonderful Mahil alumni. My name's Ariana Konjerski. I'm an education specialist here at Royal Roads University. So again, always delightful to be here with you. Okay, so a brief agenda. We'll hear a little bit about the Royal Roads experience. I'll give us some tidbits on that. We're going to, of course, hear from our alumni, a little bit on how to apply if you're thinking of applying to the program, which of course we hope you are. And then any questions, if you have any questions or comments you want to pose kind of throughout the session, again, feel free to pop those in the chat. We're happy to answer. Okay, so if you're wondering why consider Royal Roads compared to all of the other great institutions that are out there in Canada and across the world, we have some statistics here to share with you. So 93% of our alumni, and myself included, say that Royal Roads has positively influenced their lives, personally and professionally. 90% say that Royal Roads provided them with the tools needed for a leadership role in the workplace. One of my favorite stats, though, is 95% of people who start a program at Royal Roads will stay and finish. I feel like that's a great testament to our awesome faculty, our awesome staff, and really the support systems that we have here. And of course, half of our alumni chose Royal Roads because they could also work full time while studying, again, myself included. So just a few stats to share with you. And moving right along here, we have some images of our space. So if you're not familiar with our campus here, you'll see to the top left, we have Hatley Castle. This is a landmark that's been in many films, so things like X-Men, Deadpool, films like that. Many other films have been shot here. We also have beautiful gardens and green space. So you'll see to the right of that, we have a photo of our Japanese garden, really looking beautiful in bloom there. We also have a migratory bird sanctuary to the bottom left. That's a photo of our beautiful Esquimalt Lagoon. That's one of my favorite spots. And we've also been doing online and blended learning styles for 30 years now. We used to say 25, it's now 30 years, almost over 30 years. So that's a little homage to that in the bottom right corner. And we're also super proud to be an Ashoka U certified Changemaker campus, actually only one of 5 in Canada with that designation. And this is really an approach where institutions work with each other and Ashoka to address world problems. They encourage others and act for the good of all. It's very cool as well. All righty, and at this point, I will pass it back to you, Robin, so we can hear from our alumni and get the conversation going.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ariana. I'll give our panelists an opportunity to quickly introduce themselves so you know what their names are, what kinds of roles they occupy, and where they're located. Al, can I start with you?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me. So my name is Alain Paradis or Al Parody. however you wish to pronounce it. I'm in Ottawa, uh, a lifelong Ottawa resident, and I'm a professional graphic designer, and I'm program coordinator and professor in the graphic design program at Algonquin College. And I have been so for 22 years, 23 years now. So, and I'm a graduate from last year, from the Mahill program from last year.
Thanks, Al. Chelsea, you're next on my screen.
Perfect. Thanks, Robin. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Usi. I am the Director of Student Recruitment here at Royal Roads University, and I've been in this role for just over a year. I actually live in Nanaimo, the territory of the Tsunamic peoples, and I am a graduate from the class of pandemic years. I graduated in 2021.
Thanks, Chelsea. I didn't know you lived in Nanaimo.
Do you live in Nanaimo?
I also live in Nanaimo.
Robin, I'm sending you a meeting invite right after this in Nanaimo.
And Angelina.
I grew up in Nanaimo, if that makes you feel any better. But so my name is Angelina Leduc. I'm honored to be here today. I'm a program associate of the Bachelor of Business Administration program at Royal Roads. I currently live in Victoria, but as I mentioned, I grew up in Nanaimo and parts of Alberta. I've kind of jumped around. I have a military family, so we move around a lot. I graduated from the Mahill program with Al in June of 2025. And in my role as program associate, I support academic programming, program delivery, student services, and operational coordination.
Thank you, Angelina. I have a number of questions prepared for our panelists to respond to, and we're going to try and give everyone a chance to respond at least once per slide. So we have 3 slides with 2 questions on each of those slides, just so that we can get a well-rounded view of what your experience with the Mahill program was like. We'll start with question number 1, or questions number 1. Which aspects of the Mahill program were most impactful or transformational for you? And what was your most important learning from the Mahill program? I'm going to start in the middle with Chelsea. Chelsea, can I start with you?
Of course, yeah. In terms of what was the most impactful for me, I have to say the cohort model. I was told this a lot before I started, by faculty members like Robin, who said, this cohort will stay with you for life. But I don't think I really understood what that meant. And so, for an example, when I was applying to this job, in the fall of just over a year ago, and was preparing to participate in that competition, it was my cohort from 4 years earlier that was helping me to review my resume to make sure it was strong as possible, doing mock interviews with me, and frankly, pumping my tires before the interview. And so I would say that was really significant for me. We're all still really in touch. We're very connected. And once a month, I meet with some of my Maheel classmates and we talk about how we're navigating challenges at our respective institutions all across the country, which is a lens I super appreciate. Robin, did you want me to answer both questions right off the bat?
Sure. Yep, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
And in terms of the most important learning for me, I would say it's how I see problems or barriers or issues that we need to overcome as institutions. So it's that lens that I can apply much differently than I could apply before. And for me, I chose the systems thinking stream. I believe are there still 2 streams, Robin? Is that correct?
No, just one stream now. Yep.
Okay, well, ignore me. The
And
systems
and
thinking.
it's the systems stream. Yeah.
Great. So the systems thinking was really critical for me to be able to see problems from multiple perspectives in a way that I couldn't really before. I spent my whole career in recruitment, and so even if I was trying to see things from a different perspective, this program made it much easier for me to understand it from a systems perspective. And it means that I'm able to propose solutions that are more meaningful and more likely to stick and work for an institution.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chelsea. I think a lot of people speak to the importance of the network they develop, the network of peers developed throughout the Mahil program. It's folks from across the country and sometimes outside of the country who are a part of that network that lasts for years and years to follow. It's particularly useful right now, as you alluded to, Chelsea, during what is a very challenging time in our sector. And to
Mhm.
have that network of support is very generative for lots of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Angelina, can I turn to you to respond next?
Absolutely. You want me to respond to question one?
Yeah.
Okay, so what stood out most for me was how practical and reflective the Mahil program was at the same time. So I wasn't just learning theory for theory's sake. I was constantly encouraged to apply it to my work, and I saw immediate correlation. It was super applicable, and I found that it just gave me a deeper understanding as to how the institution worked, how my program worked, and how it all kind of worked in conjunction, very similarly to what Chelsea mentioned about the systems thinking and breaking out of those silos and working in conjunction with each other. And I was able to do that throughout my program, not just after I graduated. I found with my bachelor's program that I took, it was all theory, and then you get out into the real world and it's trying to regurgitate what you learned from a textbook, and really that's not applicable at all. So for me, the real world applicability of this program was fantastic. The program also gave me space to really think about equity and access to higher education and who it's designed for. So these conversations about indigenization, decolonization, and leadership, it challenged me to critically think about our institutional systems and my own assumptions, sometimes uncomfortable, but also very purposeful, and it was genuinely transformational. And then if I'm going to follow Chelsea's lead, I can answer the second question as well.
Sure, please.
So my biggest takeaway was realizing that leadership in higher education is about creating pathways, not gatekeeping them. So Mahil helped me understand that access and support structures are deeply connected, and that small policy or design changes can have a huge impact on how learners feel and where they belong. So this was especially clear to me when I did my final project. So my final project was actually focused on how to ease access for education for veterans. And this helped me to see how often non-traditional learners are navigating systems that were never built for them in mind. So how we as higher education leaders can do better when we're willing to listen and adapt. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Thank you, Angelina. I was going to mention your final project because it was also a really good example of the immediate applicability of the work that you do in the program to the work that you do day to day in real life in your employment. We are really mindful in the Mahil program about tweaking our curriculum each year based on the feedback that we get from students who participate. That means that we're able to respond really quickly to things that are happening in the sector, to be able to speak to that content within the program so that the learning that occurs through the program can immediately be taken and applied to practice in higher education systems, regardless of what kind of institution you're working from. Al, I'll turn to you to answer this one.
Thank you. So I echo a lot of what Chelsea and Angelina said. And really, the first thing I always want to mention is the people in the program. And that's really like it was transformational and impactful meeting these people. And yeah, the faculty and our students, everybody was so fantastic. And I am, it's a credit to the program that how it addressed and how applicable it was to everybody in the cohort. And it was so interesting to see the different roles and what people took from the classes, how applicable it was. So I'm in the classroom. I have a bit of an administrative role. I'm half and half, but I'm on the front lines, and it was still very applicable. And the systems thinking piece that Chelsea brought up was key because, frankly, honestly, I tend to be in a bubble. Maybe we all are in our institutions to a certain extent, but this helped me break out of that bubble to see the bigger inner workings of the whole institution and even outside the institution. So it's that 30,000 foot view of things that really helps you see how, if you're planning to implement change, the consequences it might have beyond your bubble. So to me, that was it, and it was really fascinating to see from one course to the next it was almost different faculty for every course, and the different perspectives that came in, and um, yeah, it was really the different perspectives and the variety of curriculum and how each one of those courses were so applicable. And it's really now, I submitted my paper on May 28th of 2025, and that date is burned in my mind. It was a wonderful experience. But it's only as time goes by that all that knowledge that was gained through all the courses kind of consolidates with time, and you see all the application of it within your own institution and stuff. So uh, yeah, it's really still percolating and being applied every day at work. So yeah, the applicability is a really big part of it.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I think Robin may have dropped off, so I will keep us going here. We'll move right along to question number two. Maybe I'll start with Angelina, if you don't mind.
Okay, so the question is, how has completing the Mahil program influenced my career in higher education? So completing the Mahil program has changed how I show up professionally and how my contributions are recognized within my organization. So I have not yet formally moved to a higher level in my role. However, my influence and visibility has grown. I'm now regularly asked to contribute my perspective on grant and procurement initiatives, client facing and community building work. It feels like I'm a lot more valued, and I don't know whether that's the initials at the end of my name or the fact that I just have the confidence to step up and contribute more than I did before. So like the other two were mentioning, I'm not just doing this beyond a purely operational lens. I'm now understanding how decisions and policies and relationships intersect. And I feel that that's extremely valuable to what I can contribute to Royal Roads. So rather than just marking an endpoint when I finished my degree, I believe that this degree has positioned me to begin the next stage of my career. And it's opening doors to conversations and opportunities that require collaboration and systems thinking. And I have that strong commitment and community-centered design, so it's worked out really well for me. And then how I find this question similar to the last one. I'm going to try and spin it a little bit. How my Mahil better equipped me to flourish in higher education. So I feel like I have the internal tools now that I didn't have before I started. So I've taught to slow down and think intentionally about how to approach each complexity and each problem and do it with curiosity rather than urgency. Using that systems lens has really made a difference in my life, and it changes how I navigate challenges and allows me to respond thoughtfully and kind of open up the scope of every problem. With my final project, as I mentioned, that was especially grounding. It connected me to a renewed purpose in my career and work that matters to me both professionally and personally as a Canadian Armed Forces veteran. So that experience has strengthened my resilience and sharpened my values and reinforced my commitment. So as a result of all of that, I think I feel just more confident and aligned, and I'm prepared to grow over the long term. Thank you, Ariana.
Thanks, Angelina. I'm back. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. That is the first time that's ever occurred to me. I was just booted out of the Zoom room. For some reason, the the Zoom gods felt like I didn't need to be here for that period of time.
I just answered
Um,
question two, but I was the only one that answered, so you didn't
okay,
miss much.
great. Thank you. uh, let's move to Al. Al, can we have you answer the second question?
Sure. So, like Angelina, I'm still in the same position in the graphic design program as coordinator. But with all the changes going on institutionally, it just at the risk of repeating myself, it's again that systems view of understanding how these changes, the external factors are affecting our institution, and then how that just kind of reverberates through the whole organization, of just basically understanding that more. And also, just on a really practical term, having that credential does. You said it well, Angelina. What did you say? It was just either reputationally or just the credibility you bring to the workplace is just enhanced with that. Absolutely, I see it day to day. Yeah, that systems view of the whole thing is really a big piece of it. So I'm just looking at the question again. Better equip you, yeah. So that basically that's my input on that.
Thanks, Al. I think one of the strengths of our program that both of you have alluded to is that right now, in our current context, when so much is changing across the higher education sector in all different kinds of institutions, um, that systems thinking piece of this program really helps people to situate themselves within that change and to figure out how to have influence on that change from wherever you happen to be. So this program isn't necessarily about uh, leadership from formal positions of leadership. It's about leading process and practice from wherever you are and having influence on that. Thank you. Chelsea, we'll finish with you.
Yeah, of course. I think my answers will probably bleed into one another, so I'll just approach it as one. But I mean, I think I've spoken to this a little bit already, but just the ability to break through problems or barriers in a way that I couldn't necessarily see before has been extremely helpful. And in that process, you'll do a lot of stakeholder analyses in this program. And after a while, I was like, oh, how many of these do I need to do? But I'm so grateful now because now it's just like always in the back of my head. So it's really ingrained. And so when I'm trying to break through a barrier or an issue or a challenge, that like stakeholder analysis is just second nature to me, which I'm really grateful for. And, Angelina had said something great, which was we're looking for pathways, not gatekeeping. And so when I think about breaking through those problems, it's like helping carve out pathways forward. We've talked a bit about the applicability of and how practical this program is. To provide some examples, like every single assignment I wrote or completed was on a real issue I was facing in my real job at that moment in time. So when we were doing a course on institutional viability, I did a financial analysis on my actual budget and where I could improve it and where we might be overspending. And that was really hard to carve out in my workday. So being able to apply what I was learning in real time to my work, as you can imagine, my workplace was thrilled about that. And it was extremely helpful for me because it kind of blends into one. I do think I do credit Michiel with equipping my career to flourish. When I started the program, I was a supervisor in a recruitment office at Douglas College. When I left the program, I was a manager at a UBC recruitment department. And then I've been the director of recruitment here for the last year. And so I think my career has progressed even faster than I could have expected. And the credential is extremely important, but for me, it's been the way I've been able to like think much more differently and reflect a lot more on leadership styles and personality types and values in the workplace and all of that I couldn't quite see before.
Thanks, Chelsea. And a question just to add to this conversation that we often get from prospective students is, does Mahil prepare people to go on and further their education? And can I do a PhD after I do the Mahil program? The answer is yes, absolutely. So two potential completion pathways with Mahil. We have a project-based pathway, which you've heard Angelina speak to in terms of a practical example, and a thesis-based pathway for completion. Both of those pathways prepare people to go on to further educational pursuits. And we can make some specific recommendations about the kind of program pathways that people choose to follow. We are really committed to maintaining that rigor of education in addition to the practical applicability of what it is that we work through in the content of this program. Okay, thank you, Ariana. Our third question slide shifts gears a little bit and gives folks an opportunity to talk about what was challenging about completing the Mahil program and what pieces of advice would you offer for someone who is starting the Mahil program right now? Can I start with you, Al?
I think I'll be bold enough to even answer for all three of us without knowing anything. And it's work-life balance. Being ready to take the time to dedicate the time to studies on top of everything else. As you mentioned, I think earlier, there's a lot of people who are doing this while you're working. You have your day job basically, and families and everything else going on. That was definitely the biggest challenge, to find your groove, find your time, find your way to work, do academic work after driving home from campus, and it's evening or weekend or whatever your time, or early morning, but finding that time and balancing everything was definitely, for me anyways, the number one challenge. But we find a groove, you find your way to do it, you find your work methods, and it is very much changing gears, right? It's as applicable as all the curriculum is to day-to-day work. There's still a big changing gears in your mind when you're doing your daily work and then coming home and writing and reading and that kind of thing. So and again, mixed in with personal lives and everything else. So the program's rigorous, but again, the faculty are amazing, the supports are amazing. But yeah, work-life balance was the biggest thing.
And what piece of advice would you offer for someone who is starting the program?
To time that, be sure you're ready. Be sure you're ready to dive in and commit to that time. But once you do dive in and enjoy it, like just enjoy the ride. It's fantastic. Again, the people, all the interactions and everything, and then the content of the courses, just the feel of every course is just different going from one to the other. And I really enjoyed that change. But as far as advice, it's, yeah, be sure you're ready. As I mentioned earlier, I think maybe before the call, that my manager encouraged me to take this. And it actually took me 2 years to pull the trigger and say, okay, I'm doing this now. And it was time. My kids were older, and at work was okay. Things had settled down. Little did I know that my wife was about to get a knee replacement. So we did that. That was like a huge thing while I was studying. So there was work, carrying around the house, and then studies. So it was pretty heavy. But yeah, be sure you have the space in your life before you start. And then, but once you do, it's a wonderful experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Al. I should say too that in this program, we get students from all phases and stages of life, all phases and stages of career. So we have students who have been relatively recent graduates from an undergrad program, all the way up to folks who are nearing retirement. We have people who are fairly early in their careers, who are trying to carve out a space or a pathway for themselves in higher education systems. And we have folks who have occupied roles as associate vice presidents in the institutions or vice presidents in the institutions where they're employed. What the upshot of this is that the program is flexible and adaptive enough to meet people where they're at and to offer folks what it is that they need from the program. As Al mentioned, work-life balance is a real thing, and I don't know if it exists when students are in the midst of their program experience. However, all of the faculty and administration in our program not only acknowledge that life happens, but we do our very best, everything that we can, to ingrain enough flexibility in this program that we can accommodate life happening when it does. This means that we have lots of flexibility with things like due dates, with things like with teamwork, all of those kinds of aspects of course to course work that you will encounter. And we understand that we have some institutional constraints that we have to work within. And our job is to figure out how to be as flexible as possible within those constraints. So it tends to be easier for folks to achieve that kind of flexibility that they need with this program than at other comparable institutions. Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm just building on that a little bit. I would say there's never a perfect time to do a master's degree. And to put some of what Robin said into context, in the program in our cohort, I think we were 24 people. People got married, they had babies, they moved across the country with their entire families, they lost loved ones, they lost pets, they took on new jobs, they lost jobs. And we lived through a pandemic in that period of time. We were only about 7 months into our program. And what's really striking to me is that every single one of us finished the program, despite all of those things I just listed, in part because how caring the faculty members are. I've spent a lot of my life in higher education studying, and I've never had like the student faculty relationships in the way that we do at Royal Roads. Like the faculty do really care about you and they'll know you by first name. And you'll have a lot of really in-depth conversations with them. I have a couple faculty members who are still, I would consider my mentors. So when I'm facing a really challenging problem at work, I'll call them up and pick their brains. And I'm always really grateful to them for that. And so, it's life keeps lifing at us. That is just how it goes. And you can absolutely do it with the support of your faculty members, of all the wonderful staff here, and your classmates. And in terms of advice, so funny enough, Ariana actually started a master's degree here at Royal Roads yesterday. And so Ariana and I were just having this conversation of advice for going back to school. So for me, I would be curious to know if Alan, Angelina, this was true for you. I found the first 6 months the hardest as I learned to adjust again to being a student and working full time. Not to say the program isn't challenging all the way throughout, but adjusting and making that room in your life for a program was a learning curve. But you will get a ton of resources in this program, and I really encourage you to make use of them. One thing I heard a lot from my classmates is a lot of my classmates had business degrees. I was one of the few who had an arts degree, so I was very used to writing papers, and my classmates found it really challenging to be writing as many papers as we were. And so the Writing Center was really integral to all of our success. And even though I had a fair amount of academic writing experience, they really helped me to simplify my writing style and structure in a way that I still use today. The research librarians were extremely helpful. I'm a much better researcher now as a result. And I can't remember who, I think it was maybe one of our team coaches who told us from the beginning, just like read wherever you are. Like if you're waiting 5 minutes at the dentist, like you read. If you're on the bus going to work, read. I travel a lot for work. If you're on an airplane, like that's where I wrote all my papers. And that was really good advice because it meant I could protect a little bit of downtime and rest and recovery at home.
Thank you, Chelsea. I think that's super advice. It's a really good way to carve out time to do that academic work. Just to your point, with respect to all the kinds of things that have happened to folks while engaged in this program, one of my favorite things is sitting in on synchronous sessions or teaching in synchronous sessions where we see babies, kids, pets, the whole spectrum of human life shows up for synchronous sessions. And we really pride ourselves on acknowledging the fact that people are people. We're whole people. We don't leave ourselves at the door when we come to the learning in a master's program. Angelina, I have you finish off here with this one.
All right. I'll try not to echo too much of what they said, although everything they said is completely valid and I totally agree. But I would say, in terms of balance for me, the most particular one I found the most difficult was balancing motherhood alongside working full time and taking the degree. So I have two young children, and most of my coursework happened after my kids went to bed. So I was working into the wee hours of the morning where I had quiet time and uninterrupted time, and I didn't also want to take time away from them and my time that I spent with them. So I mean, those wee hours were very productive, but they also required a lot of discipline and commitment. And I worked on probably 5 hours of sleep most of the time. And then additionally, I don't know if anyone's touched on this, but I had a huge issue with imposter syndrome. So I'm in the early stages of my higher education career, and I felt like I was in a classroom full of giants. There was these directors and these program coordinators and people that have been in the industry for 20 plus years. And then there's me who at the time had been in higher education for four, and I was deciding that this was where I wanted to take my career. But that being said, I really found space within the program for my ideas and I felt valued. Uh, Being in the student-facing space that I was asked questions that maybe some of the directors really hadn't had perspective on. So it made me feel like my self-doubt was overcome over time, and that was helpful. And then speaking to what Chelsea said, I used every available moment I had to listen and learn. So I had my laptop at arenas, I had my laptop at soccer fields. I was working through practices and activities and doing my reading through audio so that I could listen to it while I was driving, that sort of thing. So you just carve out time where you can find time. And that really helped me to reframe my imposter syndrome because I was noticing myself growing rather than feeling inadequate. And every assignment that I completed, every discussion that I contributed to, it helped me build that confidence that I didn't have right at the beginning and reaffirm that I belonged in the program. So I think that was especially valuable. And then as far as advice that I would give to someone starting the Mahil program, I think bringing your whole self, your real questions into the program. Don't try and separate your coursework from your professional life. The more you can merge them together, the more valuable your experience will be. And then start thinking about a final project that genuinely matters to you. So for me, the veteran access made my work feel really purposeful rather than purely academic. So it made me want to continue to do the research, to be inquisitive and find new information. And leaning into my cohort, as others have mentioned, we shared challenges. I picked their brain about their knowledge, and they were honestly the biggest cheerleaders, both that and the faculty. As we had those downtimes, as we had those hard times that we didn't think we can continue going, those were the people that we leaned on the most. And I have to trust yourself and take that leap of faith. So if you prioritize yourself and be intentional with your time, you can actually make those goals happen. And even during the challenging times, and realize what your why is. So revisit that why throughout the program. Maybe it's because you're bettering yourself or your family's future, or trying to deepen your understanding of the learner experience. It's just that why that you need to hold on to push through the long nights and the busy days.
Thank
That's all I've
you.
got.
Thank you, Angelina. I remember I started my PhD when my kids were 2 and 4. And so I took the same approach as you did, Angelina. I would put the kids to bed and then I'd turn on the computer and start my schoolwork after they were in bed. And one benefit of this is that when you're done the program, you realize how much you're capable of doing, and life feels so much more laid back than you could ever imagine possible. But it is a reality that there's a lot of time management to be done as part of your work as a student in this program, and that's just a reality of the process. Thanks to all three of you for your responses to these questions. It's been great to hear more about your experience. How, as we close here, I'm wondering if anyone who is participating in our session today has any questions. You can just throw questions in the chat if you have questions for these panelists. And if there's any kind of final piece of wisdom, panelists, that you'd like to share before I turn things back over to Ariana.
I'd like to add something quickly, going back to the first question uh, on impactful, what like things that we learned. And one thing that was continuously surprising to me throughout the whole program, and it came up with faculty and in our cohort of students, is the difference in the way our institutions are run across the country, and the roles in the institution, and how leadership works, and the structures of the institutions, where and the names of the roles and the responsibilities and everything was like, when I started again, that's one of those things that was just so illuminating. I was like, my God, I just thought every college across the province and the country just worked the same way. But man, there's differences between the institutions. And it was super interesting to learn, because it also opens up possibilities like, why don't we work that way, right? There's other uh, possibilities there. So yeah, that was continuously a huge asset to learn about those things, how the different institutions work.
Thanks, Al. Any other last thing like you'd like to share, or piece of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with?
So I
Chelsea's
think
got
this
nothing.
there's a question there.
I just wanted to say, if you stay connected to your reason for starting and you give yourself grace, the Mahil journey can be both demanding and absolutely one of the most rewarding investments that you can make, for sure.
Thank you.
And making it real too, like Angelina said, that don't make up for a project something, like keep it related to your work, and it makes it so concrete that you can really, really bring it back to your work. And no matter, like Angelina was talking about imposter syndrome and stuff, and I was in the program with all kinds of people, and I saw it exactly the opposite way around, kind of, that I was even with, if I have 22, 23 years experience in higher ed, I'm in the classroom, and there was all these directors and everything in the program. So I had imposter syndrome. So here we all were with that. And it's totally unnecessary. And it is a tribute to the program that we all, before very long at all, felt comfortable and go, yeah, I do belong here, no matter what, that the courses felt tailored to each of us and everything. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Al. We've got lots of questions here in the chat. Thanks,
Mhm.
folks, for doing that. Some of them I'm going to leave to Lisa Murray, our enrollment advisor extraordinaire, who's I see putting some answers into the chat as well.
Mhm.
How long does it take to complete is a question. You can complete the program in 2 years. Sometimes people take a break in the process of doing the program and it takes a little longer, but 2 years is generally what we tell people to allot in terms of time. What year does this program start? So our next intake, our start date has actually shifted as we move towards a term system at Royal Roads, which we haven't conventionally had. So our 2026 intake will be in late September. The program starts. What are the main methods of assessment is another question. Excellent question. Oh, there's all kinds of modes of assessment, everything from writing papers to writing briefing notes um, group presentations to more creative methods of assessment. In some courses, students have um, lots of choice in terms of figuring out how they would like to present the knowledge that they've gained throughout the course. We use a wide range of assessment strategies in the McHeal program. What else do we have here?
I think another question, Robin, was how did you fund your education?
Oh, yes.
Scholarships, employer funded, personal savings, any tips?
Yes. So there are a fair amount of scholarship and bursary options offered via Royal Roads University. I think we may have a link that you can visit to investigate some of those options. Lots of our students do have help from employers. Some of our students pay for the whole program themselves. Some use professional development money. So there's, again, lots of different options that folks use to fund their education in this program. And we'd be more than happy to run through some of those options with you if you want to connect later on after this session.
Awesome. Another question, Robin. What I believe on the start here, what year did this program start? When was the first cohort?
Oh,
Like what was the first year that it was offered?
oh, I see, I see.
Yeah,
2015 was the
cool.
first year that it was offered. Yeah. So we're a little over 10 years old now.
Amazing. It's
Yeah,
fantastic. Awesome. Well, I can keep going with some info. Yes, you're welcome.
yeah,
I keep going with some info on how to apply. Hopefully that answers some questions, but we'll keep going with a little bit more info if that's okay with you, Robin.
yeah, sure.
Um, Hopefully that will answer if you have any more questions here. So how to apply, again, if you are thinking of applying to the program, of course, we always hope that you are. Here's some steps to keep in mind as a student now of Royal Roads, as Chelsea mentioned. I just went through these steps, so I speak very much from fresh experience here. So the first step is an online application fee, so about 139.43 Canadian, and then we ask for some supporting documents. So Royal Roads will ask for things like official transcripts from previous post-secondary, if you have it, a detailed resume, of course, so going into detail about like what is your work experience, your volunteer experience, really trying to put as much info as you can in there for our admissions advisors. A personal statement, and this I always describe like a cover letter if you are applying for a job. So kind of going into detail about like why do you want to come into this program? What can you bring to this program? What are your kind of unique strengths? Anything like we should know about your application, maybe that's not in your resume. So things like that is very helpful to put in that statement. Again, the whole details on how to do all of these things are on our website, so I'll share these resources kind of after the session as well. We ask for 2 letters of reference as well, so either professional in nature from your workplace or academic in nature if you have previous post-secondary. There's also some English language requirements to be mindful of. Again, those are all listed on our website, full details on that at railroads.ca. As Robin mentioned, we have some key dates. So if you're looking at starting in 2026, the deadline for application is June 28th, 2026. Or sorry, I reversed that on the on the slide. Those should be reversed. The start date is in September and the application deadline is in June. So if you are thinking of joining us, that's some dates to be mindful of there. and some services that are available for you. So I know we had a question about financial aid and award. Also, we have our wonderful friends in enrollment services. So if you are looking for those financial resources, so things like loans, bursaries, scholarships, other awards, they're very nicely laid out on our website. So you can kind of scroll through those. You can filter based on program and see all of the things that are available to you. There's also emergency funding, so all sorts of stuff on that section on our website. Yeah, thanks, Lisa, for the blog from Financial Aid and Award as well. Enrollment services, again, thanks, Lisa, for being here, putting all those helpful links into the chat. They're really wonderful group of folks, so they can be reached at learn.more@ruralroads.ca, or I know Lisa's put her email if you want to connect one-on-one with her as well in the chat. Or there's some phone numbers if you want to give somebody a call, their local phone number, and then toll free for North America as well. And they can really help you like narrow down your program options. They can connect you with the program heads, with the students, alumni. So if you're looking at really connecting with anybody, that's the place to go. So again, all of that info will be in my follow-up. So if you want to kind of keep the conversation going, that's a great place to connect with. Okay, and at this point, I will say a very big thank you, of course, to our panelists, to you, Robin, Lisa, for putting all those links in the chat. We really appreciate your time today, folks. Thanks to everybody tuning in live and onto the recording as well. We really appreciate you spending the last almost hour with us. And at this point, I'll pass it back to you, Robin, if you have any last things you want to wrap us up with.
Thank you. Angelina just reminded me that we ought to mention our flexible admissions options at Royal Roads University. Flexible admissions means that you don't necessarily have to have an undergraduate degree in order to be admitted into this program. There's lots of flexible admissions information on our website, and this is a good thing to explore if you perhaps don't have an undergraduate degree, but you're interested in pursuing this particular master's program. I also want to thank our panelists. Al, Angelina, Chelsea, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to be with us. This is really fantastic to have you here. It's always a pleasure to see the three of you. Thanks for coming, and I hope to connect with you again soon. And thanks to all of our participants. Great to see you. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And we'll
Thank
be in touch
you.
with all of those resources shortly. Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much.